Hello!
Hey.
Hi guys, it is the 3rd of July, it is day 105 of our lockdown, and we're back again, as ever, here we are. We're actually getting this done a little bit, well, it was supposed to be earlier than it should have been, that was the plan.
That is always the
plan. It is
plan.
now about 9 p.m, but that is
Yeah,
actually
so-
quite good, because quite often we're doing this at sort of 11:30.
We've done them at past midnight before, but, you know.
But yeah, there's still the last sort of glimmers of daylight out there, so that's why the lighting might look a little better than normal. But we're actually doing this before it's properly nighttime, because today, the 3rd of July, is Hamilton Day. And if you don't know what that's about, Hamilton is an absolute smash hit musical that went mental on the West End and Broadway pre-corona, and it's today been released on Disney Plus. So I've been wanting to see Hamilton for ages. And I know like what it's about, but I actually haven't heard a lot of the music or any of that, but I know that it just basically got absolutely stellar reviews, and the little bits that I have seen have been pretty phenomenal, so I'm quite looking forward to that, and it's going to be on Disney Plus for a while. We don't know how long, but I just thought today's the first day, I want to watch it.
It's been the kind of big can't get a ticket for it London show for years now, and I don't really know why it's come to streaming services. I don't know if this was always the plan, or if it's something to do with like loss of revenue.
Yeah, I doubt it was always the plan. I'm sure if it was still actually running in the West End and on Broadway, there's no way they would release it to a streaming service. But because theatres are not open, maybe they've just kind of gone, well, we want to be the sort of big thing that's being talked about. Maybe Disney gave them a good deal and they needed the revenue. But either way, we probably couldn't have gone to see it because it was one of those like absolute hot tickets. So even the like crappy tickets in the gods were going for an extortionate price. So probably, certainly under this climate, we wouldn't be able to afford it. But had we been able to go previously, we probably would have had to sort of go like, oh, we're just going to have to wait a while and catch the tour if it tours and that kind of thing. So
we'd have to have remortgaged the house, wouldn't we?
We don't have a mortgage in the first place.
No, well, it would have caused ructions because we don't own the house. So we would have had to talk to the mortgage holder, and they've gone, well, we haven't paid off the first one yet.
Yeah.
Not sure.
Yeah, I don't think it was a realistic goal. So I'm really excited, and actually I think it's a really good thing that obviously like the arts in general are really struggling at the moment under this, because the chances of actually being able to reopen after this, after months and months and months of having to be shut, and then when they do open, certainly with reduced capacities, it is very dangerous ground for the arts right now, and I do want to support them as and when possible, but I have always found theatre tickets to be generally, for most people, prohibitively expensive. And I think it is a shame when some people who would absolutely love it and really get a lot from it don't have the opportunity to see these shows. So I think the fact that one of the biggest hits is going to be able to be watched from the comfort of your own home. It's not the same as actually the experience of seeing it in the theatre, of course it's not. But considering we can't do that anyway at the moment, but also some people couldn't really realistically do that anyway, I think it's brilliant because it's going to sort of get people hopefully going, oh my god, this is amazing, and maybe just sort of inspiring a new generation of people to go like, I want to do that. That's the kind of thing I want to make. So yeah, I'm really all for it. I might watch it and hate it, but I don't think so. I'm a big fan of a musical anyway, and yeah, I think this is sort of, it's retelling the tale of one of the sort of founding fathers of the States, but the music style is very much sort of modernized. It's not sort of being like all sort of stuffy and old traditional musical at all. So more on that undoubtedly tomorrow, because we haven't seen it yet, so I don't know what to say about it.
I saw someone on Twitter this morning complaining because they had been led to believe that Frozen 2 was being released on Disney Plus today. And then they went to look for it and couldn't find it.
Oh, boo.
But I did not do any follow-up on that, so I don't know if it's on there now, or if it was never supposed to be today, or if they've changed it. It seems to me like it'd be a strange move to kind of have two such big tentpole releases on the exact same day, but certainly Frozen 2 is something I'm looking forward to seeing.
I want to see Frozen 2. Interestingly, I discovered yesterday that Enchanted is not on Disney Plus, which is odd. It must have been done with sort of another studio involved, and they haven't allowed them to do it because a friend of mine
licensed it out to another streaming service.
A friend of mine was sort of wanting to watch it, hadn't seen it, and has Disney Plus, and just thought, well, that's a that's a sort of big classic Disney film, you'd think.
Mm.
And they kind of sort of say that everything's on there, but no, it isn't. I imagine it will be at some point, but yeah, maybe it has to run through a certain run on something else first. But yes, Enchanted, I haven't seen. So I'd quite like to see that. But yes, so Hamilton later after this. So I've had to get on the coffee because I was a sleepy girl today. I've actually had a nap for that. I try to avoid having naps because our sleep pattern is atrocious. Well, my sleep pattern is particularly atrocious anyway. So it only gets worse if I've had a little power nap in the day. But today I was just absolutely flagging. So yeah, went for a little nap. So I'm on the coffee now, which is probably a bad plan at 9 p.m. But if you want to have me with any energy for this vlog, and if I want to sort of be like enjoying Hamilton, that's what's happening. But yes, so I left it on a cliffhanger yesterday. Cliffhanger. We've not done that before. But yeah, basically, yesterday, Chris voluntarily, and I maintain without due cause, ate cat treats. Do you want to explain yourself?
It was on a panel show. It was for a joke. It was funny. Did the people on the panel show laugh?
Yeah.
Yes.
But
I rest my case.
It was funny. It was funny, and I enjoyed it. I did not enjoy your breath afterwards, but my my main point about it though was, like, it is being recorded on a webcam. You could easily have faked it.
Well,
but I don't think you have enough faith in your acting skills.
I just think it's sometimes. I think people can tell the difference between a stage thing and a real thing sometimes, even if it's acted.
I'd have
even
sold
if it's
it
acted
for
well.
you.
And I think it's funnier to actually do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
And people have done worse things on webcams. Let's face it. So
people certainly have.
I regret nothing. I will say that the cat treats I had were supposed to be salmon flavoured.
Yeah.
They did have a salmon taste to them, and at first I thought, yeah, these actually aren't bad. And then there was an aftertaste that I was not on board for. So
I imagine very dry and sort of in your teeth for a while afterwards, because like I think I was fairly horrified. Like, and I don't know why it's worse. Well, no, it is worse that it's cat food, but like, I don't love like I just don't think about the fact that you eat meat, because it's just like, well, I don't like it. Let's say you're tucking into the middle of a bit of a roast dinner. I'm not going to immediately kiss your face because I'm like, yeah, that's meat juice.
Yeah, because you're interrupting my dinner.
You'd let me if I tried. But like, I think it wasn't even immediately after the cat treat, but like it was sort of a few minutes later. I sort of went to give you a little smooch, and I was like, I don't know if it's psychological or if I can actually smell cat treat, but that needs to be dealt with.
Well, I don't mind, because that's the smell I get off the breath of cats sometimes.
Yeah, but do you want to snog them? No.
I like to kiss their little heads.
Yeah, that's true. I like to kiss their little heads too.
You can't really snog a cat anyway. They don't really have the lips for it.
I think you'd very quickly not have the tongue for it if you tried.
I think they look. I think they'd be weird looking with big old lips. I'm not sure about that.
No.
Don't be putting lips on cats, guys.
Just on the top of their little heads.
Just a little kiss on their little heads.
Yeah.
And maybe on their backs.
Oh, and the bellies if they let you, but that's a dangerous move. But yeah, so that was well, basically the reason enough given was for the lols, but it just. It wasn't like nobody suggested you do it in part of the conversation. It was just you had them, so you went right. And yeah, I was quite staggered. I did not know that was your plan. Was that your plan, or did you just think of it on the moment just like, oh fuck it?
It was always the plan.
It was always the plan, right? Okay. Well, I'm glad you didn't warn me.
Check out Forza Crowd. This week's one, if you want to see that. There are other jokes as well.
Yeah,
you know,
it was a really good fun one yesterday.
It's not like a gross out show.
No,
it's a fun panel show, and we have a bit of banter and a bit of,
you just did your own thing with that.
Yeah.
And actually, I have to say for the audience at home, it wouldn't be particularly gross out anyway, because they can't. It's not like they can sort of. You're not sort of going, look at these cat treats all chewed up in my mouth or anything. But it's just bizarre that you chose to do that.
I think it was fun.
It was. But yes, we'll move on.
Let's move on.
So, where shall we go with that?
The Daily Mail.
Yes, okay. Daily Mail.
Story on their website.
Yes, we are, I think it goes without saying, not big fans of the Daily Mail. And when they put out stories online, if somebody I see it on someone's news feed, I deliberately try and read the story via another source, so they don't get the clicks, because actually most newspapers make the bulk of their revenue from online viewing nowadays, which is the advertising that is around them. So I don't want the Daily Mail to get any money for anything.
We don't know if the Daily Mail have run this story in their papers or not. We just know it's on the
Yeah, I imagine they probably
version.
will, because if you sort of make a habit of doing, like, I don't think it would be only an online story, because some of the people involved in it are recognisable and of profile. So I would have thought that they probably will, but I can't guarantee that.
I should say we did talk about this kind of story more specifically in things a while ago, and I think we kind of decided to kind of draw a line under it and not really sort of keep bringing it up, but because it's now made the papers.
Yeah, because what it felt like at the time was that it was sort of in the Twitter sphere and everybody was sort of talking about it, but it didn't really feel like it had broken.
Yeah.
So the story we are referring to is several women having come out and spoken against several male comedians who have been varying degrees of bastards. Due to sort of sexual misconduct, inappropriate behaviour, right up to flagrantly illegal behaviour, that all along that kind of spectrum of creepy, gross, inappropriate and unpleasant, to varying degrees. So the Daily Mail have actually run this story at the very least online. The reason that was drawn to my attention was that one of the girls who came forward, she referred on Twitter to the fact that they had gone with the story. They had used a picture of her, which they had just got as an old holiday selfie rather than any of her actual press images, but also in the story just had her face among the people they were outing as sex offenders, which looks a bit bad.
The headline is about sort of sexual offenders in comedy, and then it's just a montage of shots. And
two of which are ladies who have come forward and made accusations.
There's nothing to kind of differentiate.
3 are men who are being accused.
But there's no labelling or anything to say which ones of these are abusers and which ones are survivors.
No, you have to read the article,
like,
and we know that people don't.
Comedy, and then a bunch of pictures, and so
so
when
maybe
the Daily Mail are doing something broadly positive, they still manage to.
They still fuck it up.
Yes.
But so they've run with the story. So the main 3 male comedians that they've named, because they do refer to there being a greater sort of atmosphere at the moment of women coming forward, and not always women, but it's usually women coming forward about dodgy situations that they have found themselves in at the hands of colleagues on the comedy scene. But the 3 that they mention specifically and go into some detail on what they've been accused of are Tez Ilias, who I have to admit I didn't know, and even when I looked at pictures of him I still didn't recognise him. But he has actually got quite a big platform. He's just passed me by.
He's been on Radio 4 and the BBC.
He had his own show, didn't he? So that's quite a big platform, that.
Yeah.
And Hardeep Singh Kohli, who you might not know by name, but you will definitely recognise, because he's sort of been a face. He's been a talking head on quite a lot of things, but yeah, he was on Celebrity Big Brother. He's done sort of various things, and our good friend George Rigdon.
He's mainly known for his work on gambling adverts.
Yeah. Which, interestingly, this isn't really what we're talking about, but I think it does show a general lack of ethics if you're willing to take money to promote gambling, really. Yeah, I think it's a bit different if it's something like maybe the National Lottery, which does a lot of charity work, but even then I'd be a bit like, eh.
I think there are I'm not against people doing any adverts. Obviously, it's a good way to make some money that helps fund other artistic work that maybe isn't making very much money and helps you support yourself, and especially if you have to live in London, blimey. But you certainly, I do think, let's not advertise gambling, because it's kind of addictive and not very...
I sort of feel that the gambling industry sort of essentially takes advantage of quite vulnerable and easily led people, and basically the people who majorly fund the gambling industry are people who cannot afford to do so but do anyway. But that is very much an aside, and that is just a personal thought. But yes, so the Daily Mail have gone into the story. We don't need to go massively into the details of what's been said to them. We kind of have done, but I would say if you're not sure or you don't know, just look up those
Yeah.
names and look up accusations and see what they've been accused of. I
Normally,
did enjoy the Daily Mail's summary of
Yeah.
George Rigdon's apology, though.
well, I think it just what it did. I think they quoted from his
They
apology,
did, but they just
they took out all the kind
summarised
of
it.
all his mitigating and all his prevaricating and all his kind of trying to diminish what he'd done, and just highlighted the things he'd actually done that he mentions.
Yeah.
But
So yeah, I think it came up with quite a succinct line, basically saying what a horrendous, inappropriate, misogynistic creep he had been.
an abusive partner. But
yeah.
he normally when we talk about news stories in this, often we'll like link the article in the blurb. I don't imagine we will with this one because it's the Daily Mail, and as I said, we say we don't want them to get click-through revenue, but the information is out there if you want to look it up.
Seek it out.
But what I think is positive about this, though, is obviously this sort of stuff gets kind of out there on Twitter and on Facebook and on social media platforms, and it's kind of talked about within the industry and kind of whispered about, but you don't know how much profile it's going to get beyond that.
No, and also it is tricky when you're trying to sort of get to the bottom of what the story is when you're looking at things like Twitter, because you sort of, it's a bit of a Chinese whispers of so-and-so said this, and they're referring to something, but you're like, but what's the thing actually
and some of the things
what's actually come out?
Some of the things these guys have done, it's like, well, you shouldn't have a platform anymore, you shouldn't be gigging in a position to kind of leech onto vulnerable women, whatever it may be, but there might be a promoter, for example, who thinks, well, it's all very well that the industry doesn't like this person very much, but I've got a gig in a pub here, and I've got an audience that will pay and see this person that's been on TV, and they won't necessarily know, the audience won't care, they won't know, they've not been following the Twitter.
No.
And maybe the fact that it's in the papers now raises public awareness, maybe puts a bit of pressure on promoters to be like, don't book these guys, they're not good dudes.
Yeah, well, hopefully, because I can vouch for their big, like, because when these sort of things are discussed, it can make the scene as itself, as a whole, seem like a very unsafe place to be. But that is at the hands of the minority. But obviously it's a very powerful minority. And once you don't feel safe with one person, you very much don't know who you can feel safe around. Obviously, I would vouch for many male comedians I know who I absolutely would 100% trust and love and admire, and I know that they're good guys, and I'm sure that is true of the vast majority, or at the very least they're not bad guys.
Well, the other danger is, like, obviously it's important to kind of raise these names and raise these issues and try and weed these people out of comedy, but the danger is, you know, that people go away with a sense that the entirety of comedy is really toxic, and that you're not going to be comfortable or safe at a comedy night. And actually,
which overall has then the knock-on effect that you will have less representation from vulnerable or marginalised groups.
And not to diminish anyone's experiences or people who have been made to feel vulnerable, and it's completely understandable that they would then associate that with comedy nights and maybe not want to be a part of that. But at the same time, we wouldn't want to put off people from going to comedy nights, who, for the most of the time, it's a positive experience, and you know, and most people are very welcoming, and it's all a nice thing.
And I think so it is important to talk about it so that the general consensus is zero tolerance, so that overall the scene feels safer, but you don't want to sort of make it out that it is absolutely every man and make it out like it's rife and you won't be safe, because ultimately what that's going to do is it's going to strongly discourage female comedians from working. There was another story that I won't go into the details of because I don't know how confirmed and how out there it is with another comedian, but something that they were accused of really hit a nerve with me, and it's not even like one of the worst things that people have been accused of, but it just sort of reminded me of a situation that I'd been in that was very similar, and then I just had that horrible, like, skin crawling feeling of, oh, I bet I know how that felt. And that is just that sort of a guy was being essentially an entitled creep, but after essentially behaving utterly inappropriately, kept trying to contact a female comedian, to which she just ignored, rightly so. I would have blocked on everything is probably what I would have done, and she may well have done so. But obviously, because she's a working comedian, he just found out where she was gigging and turned up at the gig to talk to her, and that is fucked up, because that essentially means she is then put in the position of, well, I don't want to publicise any of my gigs because I don't want this dickhead turning up. So essentially that's saying, I don't want to gig because I don't want to risk this guy turning up. Or at the very least, I don't want to gig unless I know I've got people with me who I utterly trust, and that's going to limit your ability to work. I had a similar situation, and he wasn't actually one of the sort of people I've alluded to in some of my own sort of tales of woe. He was just a bad boyfriend and a creepy ex of mine. I have actually since learned that he's been accused of some really awful things subsequent to me, and the shocking, horrible realization of it was as soon as I heard the accusations, I went, yeah, I believe them. But he had a habit of turning up places he knew I'd be. With the guise of, oh, we're in public, I just happen to be here. But you just happen to, every single time you know I'm going to be here, you just happen to be here on your own. It doesn't hold water, and it makes you feel creepy. Thankfully, he went away, but thankfully, I, rather than sort of retreated into my shell and went, I'm just going to not be there, I got cross. I was just like, no, fuck this, I'm going to be there anyway. But I had to moderate my behaviour to make sure, okay, I will make sure that the people I am meeting there are already there when I arrive, so that I don't have to have this awkward, I can ignore him if I want to, and hopefully just the sort of fervent fury with which I was very deliberately ignoring him sends enough of a message. A couple of times it didn't, and a couple of times he insisted on speaking to me, but and you sort of, the first few times you sort of politely sort of, you know, smile and nod, and then later on it was just fucking fury, just like how dare you. But that's a very minimal experience. But as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh yeah, because it is immediately your stomach lurches, your skin crawls, and you just, and to begin with, it's fear. You have a fear response, and that's very rapidly replaced by anger. Like, how dare just this person's just being somewhere make me feel so unpleasant and so uncomfortable and so unsafe. So yeah,
and it's
not cool.
It seems with this guy as well, it isn't an isolated incident. No. He's done similar things to other people. So.
And I think it comes from a place of entitlement. It comes from a sort of, well, how dare they not be interested in me? And like, well, we dare. We really fucking dare.
Yes. But a vaguely bit of positive news on a related topic is that a lot of these comedy sort of hashtag Me Too allegations, or hashtag Me Too allegations from the comedy scene, not
comedy
funny allegations. But they've kind of sprung up at the same time as a hashtag Speak Out movement in the world of professional wrestling, both in America and over here, and particularly in this country. And the thing with wrestling is it's kind of, in some ways, such a niche concern that you do wonder how much it actually, what happens in wrestling broaches the mainstream kind of media or interest or work. I think that's part of the reason why wrestling has been able to kind of carry on going when so many other sports have had to shut down, is that
it's under the radar for a lot of people.
A lot of people just don't care.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But a bit of positive news that has come out is it seems they are going to now make a change to the 2003 Sexual Protection Act.
Okay.
Off the back of the Speak Out movement, because a lot of the things that people were speaking up about was entering into wrestling at kind of 16, 17, and then being taken advantage of by much older wrestling trainers.
Right.
And and then some wrestling trainers apologising, or some wrestling trainers not apologising, but there's this mitigation of kind of, oh, I didn't do anything illegal.
It was
I had
consensual,
sex with someone who was
but
16
again,
and 17.
it's the power dynamic is fucked up. You're taking advantage of someone who needs something from you.
So if the kind of disapproval and shaming of your kind of peers and colleagues, or the worry about getting found out in that regard, isn't enough to stop you fuckers from taking advantage of young, vulnerable women, then it will now be actionable under law. So,
that is good.
Fucking stop it, creepy trainer guys.
Yeah. So what's the sort of legislation that they're changing about that? They're just basically saying that they can...
I should. They're making it basically, they're changing it so that it is illegal to have sex with a 16 or 17-year-old, like a minor, when you are in a position of trust.
Right.
So that will pertain to wrestling trainers, but
That would
obviously
also go to sort of teachers or
I mean,
just
yes,
sort
and,
of bosses,
and obviously,
employers, etc., etc.
because the whole thing is, the law is you can have sex at 16, but I think most of us, with any sense, accept that that is so 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds can have sex with each other, not so
Not
they
so
can have sex with those of us who are in our sort of 30s
Yeah.
and beyond. It's just
Yeah,
not cool.
well, that is positive, and so I assume that's UK law that you're
Yes,
just referring
UK
to.
law.
Yeah. Okay, good. Another bit of really good law that has been changed, actually, I've seen stories about it over the last few weeks, is that it has now been made that you cannot use the rough sex defence in cases where women have been killed by their partners. Though that has been used as a defence many times, and essentially it's sort of rough sex gone wrong, is what they have argued. Now, survivors of domestic violence have been able to sort of say from their own experiences, and also it's been clear to medical examiners and to the people who've known these people that this is not that would not have been the thing that they were up to, but it's plausible enough that it's a horrible accident and I didn't mean to. So they've taken it away that you can't use that as a defence, because essentially, even if you are having consensual rough sex, which, you know what, if it's all consensual and you're enjoying yourselves, go for your life, whatever floats your boat, that is all cool. But if obviously it gets to the point where someone is dying, then that's the point at which consent has been revoked. You cannot use the I got carried away and this was all a horrible shock, because it allows for men who have very deliberately killed their partners to get away with murder, and also as like the loved ones of that person who has died, that being used as an excuse for what has happened is so humiliating and disrespectful. It's just not cool. So thankfully, they have now said that in future cases that cannot be used as a defence, which is brilliant. I think, because men have got away with murder essentially, and under the guise of this was consensual. Like you can't murder someone consensually, and essentially that's what they're arguing that has happened.
Once someone is dead, they cannot use a safe word.
No. And yeah, it's so that is a positive change, but obviously it does bring up some quite unpleasant thoughts and conversations. But yes, essentially that's another positive step of the law sort of catching up with reality of, okay, these are where these laws are being exploited. So another fine example obviously is the age of consent. Well, okay, but there's other things that should be brought into factor rather than, it's okay, she's 16 now, so it's legal. And obviously I shouldn't just refer to it as just being something that happens to women.
No.
Of course it happens to men as well. But the statistics sort of suggest that particularly when it's sort of consensual sex type things, it's usually a younger woman that is taken advantage of by an older man, but not always.
But I mean, there's so many issues that we kind of...
Oh, there's a very wet cat there. Sorry, it's
so
really
many
outside
things
of
that have
us.
come up in the news,
Just
political things, issues, and all sorts of... And how you know, the best to be a good ally and how best to kind of respond to things, how best to help, and so many debates going on in the world right now, and the more I read, the more I learn. My overall takeaway from so many things is it's complicated.
Yeah.
But when it comes to taking advantage of young minors for your own sexual gratification, that is not complicated. It's really fucking straightforward. And you shouldn't be doing it. But now some of them are even more protected by law. So if you can't do it for their sakes, do it for your own, you selfish fuckers.
Yes, I quite agree.
Right, and we have been saying we really want to kind of keep these tight, because we realised we've started to kind of stretch them out a bit. What do we need to address?
I want to talk about some laws that have come into effect or will come into effect shortly in Wales, because actually they're sort of on point of what we're actually doing these vlogs for, of coronavirus and how things are going. So in England, as of this weekend, all the pubs are allowed to reopen with social distancing measures in place.
Hairdressers.
As well as hairdressers and a few other bits and bobs. In Wales, it has been announced that pubs will be allowed to open, but outdoors only, from the 13th of July. So today is the 3rd, so we've got a little bit of time. So that is, I guess, a positive but much more cautious step towards easing lockdown. However, most pubs that are sort of this applies to have had to sort of say, we're not going to be able to open when it's outside only, just because our capacity will not make it worth our while. It will, like, it may differ for sort of pubs that have got very big sprawling beer gardens,
Sure.
which maybe sort of the village locals kind of thing may be okay with, because if it's outdoors only and they've got lots of tables, they can maybe do food and things like that as well, and it's good. But actually, any sort of inner city centre pubs and bars, generally speaking, don't have a huge amount of outdoor space. Will
people be allowed in to use the toilet?
I believe, I looked at this, I don't know if it's absolutely law, but I believe most places will have a one in, one out policy, or a very strict one-way system in place, and you will probably have to go to the door to the pub, wait your turn, be told when you can go in, so that there won't be people gathering, and so you wouldn't be able to even just go to the loo with your mates and do your makeup, etc. It would be go in, come out, which will be quite difficult.
Self-conscious thing to be kind of at the pub and be like, can I use the toilet,
Can I use
please?
the loo? I think it will slightly vary from business to business on how they do that, and toilet capacity. If you can manage to have like a really good one-way system and you've got lots of loos and there's not going to be gathering, it may be that it won't have to be one in, one out, but it will be sort of policed.
I know if I'm in the pub and I'm out for a night out having a few drinks, once I've had a few pints, I'm wanting to go to the toilet pretty frequently.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
That's a lot of
and
liquid I'm taking in.
Everybody is only allowed, like, so let's say you have got a big beer garden, there's going to be, because one of the concerns that actually came up was people have been able to drink in the street before the pubs have opened, and so they have gathered in pubs, and they've had a lot of public urination. Again, I'm looking at you chaps, because I don't think, there probably have been some women that have done it, but they haven't been sort of so noticeable, and pictures shared of men just pissing in the street. And yeah, it is. Essentially, if you're going to open up places that serve drinks, particularly alcoholic drinks, which are diuretics, people need to use the loo. So I think they are being quite strict on how that's going to work.
That is a problem at the best of times, people sort of weeing in shop doorways or in side streets on their way home. But if you're going to take away the capacity for people to use toilets and you're still going to
serve them lots of beer.
I don't know if like portable urinals or portaloos are in the street are some sort of...
Well, in London, they do actually have, sort of in central London, they do have urinals in the streets, which isn't, and then they look quite, if you didn't know what they were, you could sort of think they were just a bit of sort of nice street furniture, but they are for the drunk men waiting for the night bus home, because basically pee is going to happen, so better to give it a place to do it rather than people doing it on people's closed shop fronts and things like that.
And I've seen temporary ones in
peeing on my business doorway when I've been in there and it's been operating, and I've opened the door because I've been expecting customers and opened it into a man pissing on it before now. And it was about 7 p.m. on a Saturday, and you're like, dude! Like, this is a door. Like, I did give him a bit of a bollocking.
Fair enough, really.
But, like, he got arsey with me, and he's standing there basically, like, he wasn't standing there with his knob out because he was hoping to flash someone. He was very much caught unawares, but so was I. But I was like, mate, what the fuck are you doing?
You can't be annoyed that someone has opened their own door.
No, he was hammered, and he got arsey with me, but basically I think he was arsey from a point of, oh shit, I've been caught out here, so defence mechanism. But it was gross, because then I'm like, that's my door. Ew.
I've seen temporary plastic urinals in Cardiff as well, like when they have big matches on.
Yeah, well, I think that might be the way forward, but I don't think many inner city pubs are going to be able to open under these. But it's basically what Mark Drakeford has said was this will be the first step to seeing if we can open indoors as well. If this is managed well and the R rate continues to sort of stabilise or drop, then we can then do the next stage, which I'm all for this cautious approach, but I think for the most part, most pubs are not going to be able to be open under those guidelines because they just won't have the capacity for it to be profitable.
In England, they're opening indoors as well, aren't they? Is that right?
I believe so.
But it all has to be kind of properly social distanced, and you have to.
And there's a maximum, regardless of capacity of the venue. I believe there's a maximum of 30 people,
right?
30 customers on site.
I don't know how much fun it's going to be going to the pub and like just feeling a bit awkward and trying to maintain social distance, and then you have a few drinks.
It
and
doesn't
people,
appeal to me, to be honest.
It's not the night. I understand the desire to go back to the pub, but it is not the night out at the pub that I have been.
No, I guess
missing,
like
not...
households can still sort of share tables and things like that, but yeah, you'll have to socially distance with staff and other patrons, which will be difficult to do. To any sort of serviceable, and I am concerned that as soon as people have had a few drinks, social distancing will go out of the window, because I think they will be worse at it than 5-year-olds.
And the other point, which I mean, I'm sure my sister shared a thing talking about this, and I'm sure it's not something anyone watching this would indulge in anyway, but it's kind of talking about how, remember and bear in mind the people who are working in the bar have to enforce the rules. They don't set the rules.
No.
They don't want to make your time harder or more miserable.
They're not there to be killjoys. But
they
it's
can't
just...
bend the rules just this once. They can't pull tables together to form a bigger group. They can't, they can't do it.
And they would literally get shut down for doing so. But drunk people are entitled pricks.
Yeah, so they're going to end up facing a lot of abuse just trying to enforce these rules that they...
I have to say, if I was working in a pub, I would not be looking forward to this coming days. But I get it. If you run a bar, obviously there is pressure on yourself to reopen because you need to be making money. But opening under a sort of guise where it just won't be profitable for the sake of it is kind of pointless. So that's what that's coming. So that's coming on the 13th here. It's coming this weekend in London, in England. So we will see over the weekend what scenes are coming out of England, and I suspect it's going to be carnage. Brits do like a drink.
If the
weather is nice, it's going to be carnage.
If the beaches were a problem,
the pubs are going to be a real doozy.
So
we'll have to come back on that. There were one or two other things that I wanted to talk about, but we'll have to leave them till tomorrow. But yes, so that's us for today. Thank you very much, guys. We will try to keep these tight in future because it's
we noticed they've been creeping up, and
so we'll try and
test your patience too much, basically.
We'll call that a night there. We'll let you know how Hamilton turns out. Oh, I'm excited. Until then, like and subscribe, give us a share. There's no shame in it.